Hello, everyone. My name is Connor Lichtwalter, and today I will be covering the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970. This is a very important act to me as I'm a manager at my workplace, and so I have to be very compliant with OSHA standards and following the Occupational Safety and Health Act. I am the safety leader at work, and so I have to have monthly meetings with my employees to make sure that they feel safe and that they feel that we are compliant with the guidelines that OSHA puts forth. So to start with, I just kind of want to cover what the Occupational Safety and Health Act is. From the act itself, it says to assure safe and healthful working conditions for working men and women. This act is just put into place to make sure that employees come to work and they have a safe and healthy work environment, that they are not going to have the fear of being injured or killed whenever they're at work. And if an accident does occur, that an investigation will be put forth and that the employees that are affected will have resources to allow them to move on from the accident that occurs. So, who is covered under the Occupational Safety and Health Act? So, most private sector employees are covered under this. And then it also covers those that are excluded from state occupational safety health plans. So you have the federal occupational safety and health plan, and then states have specific ones. Their base guidelines are going to be the same as the federal ones, and then the state ones can have more specific ones. I know in California they have very strict ones there, and so those that are excluded from their state plans, the federal plan will cover them. And then the federal government workers, they have a separate program under OSHA that provides things for them, and this excludes postal workers, and they are actually included under the main OSHA program. Not covered by this act can include people in state and local government agencies. The agencies that they work for provide their own occupational safety and health plans. Those that are self-employed, since they are self-employed, they don't really have to follow guidelines because they are employed by themselves. So they they're basically responsible for their own safe and healthy. And then family farmers, since it is a family business and it is private property, occupational safety and health, uh, they will not interfere with that. So what exactly does the act do? So it provides, as I said, a safe and healthy workplace for all that are covered by it, and then it allows for access to medical and exposure records for employees and OSHA, and this will allow them to help employees with compensation and with benefits if need be, to see what medical treatment they need and to see what all chemicals or any dangerous hazardous materials they've been exposed to. It requires that employers provide personal protective equipment for their employees, and this is if they are exposed to hazardous material that they provided with, let's say, gloves, masks, or even like full body suits, and then helmets if they're working with, let's say, some complex machinery that could cause damage to their body. And then also hazard communication. So let's say if an employee is having to work with some sort of hazardous chemical or just any chemical in general, the employer is required to put on the um, container of the chemicals and such that the different hazards and different consequences that can come if the chemical or the machinery is operated in the wrong way. Excuse me. And then you also have the right to confidential complaint to OSHA. So an employee has the right to complain to OSHA if they feel that safety is not being upheld in the workplace. And of course, this will be a very confidential complaint. If the employee does feel like they are experiencing discrimination after the complaint is put forth by their employer, then OSHA will protect the employee under whistleblower laws that will make sure that discrimination stops from the employer to the employee. Also, posters and notices. So posters, you have the standard OSHA poster that goes up, and it's the safety is a right at work, and then notices for anyone that um, these were going to be more of the, let's say, if someone is injured in the last 6 months, then the employer is required to put up um, when the incident happened and what occurred at that time. And then also record keeping. So employers are required to keep records of all injuries, all safety concerns, and then all deaths that occur at the workplace. But this excludes employers that have less than 10 employees, and businesses that are counted as low hazard businesses. This includes things such as certain retails. Then you have, let's say, insurance companies, just stuff that you really wouldn't have a lot of safety and health concerns at. So, what was the reason for the Occupational Safety and Health Act? The main push that the Department of Labor discusses is that there was an increased occupational injury and death in the late 1960s. And it was actually between 1945 and 1970 that there was around 400,000 American deaths at the workplace. And you saw a big push from New Jersey Senator Harrison Williams, who said that there is a need to protect workers, and he specified three things that workers were especially being exposed to at the time was loud noise, which caused deafness in many employees, cotton dust and asbestos, which would cause cancer and lung problems with many employees. So, investigation, real world example of an OSHA investigation was there were um, there was a company and they were working on a broadcasting um, tower, and there were three men. They were on a scaffold and they were working on the tower, and the scaffold actually fell over and killed the three men that were on there. The company had had history of safety issues and a history of faulty equipment, such as the scaffold that collapsed with the men on it. And they actually had a history of violations with OSHA, but they were able to get out of these violations. There are two ways you can get out: is paying fines or compliance within a certain amount of time. And so the company actually paid the fines so they wouldn't have to stay compliant with it. And then what happened is the investigation into the deaths had to be completed within 6 months following the accident that occurred. And then a problem with this is, let's say if the company just paid the fines and they were compliant, they could have easily avoided this if they were just compliant, and let's say they just got better equipment that wasn't a danger to the employees. And so these instead of just spending the money to go forth and buy better equipment for the employees, they just went ahead and paid the fines to get out of it. Okay, so I hope I have shed some light onto this act. It is very important for everyone that goes into the workplace, because this is basically the act that keeps you safe, and make sure that you have a safe and healthy workplace to go into. You don't have to worry about the danger of work. And then this act also protects you if something does happen to you at work, which is very important, because we hope that our employers will be kind if something does happen to us at work. But of course, there's always, in the world of business, corporate greed, and sometimes they will say, "Oh, it's not our fault. We don't have responsibility for you. This accident was yours." But OSHA will actually be there to help you in case a situation like that does occur, so that you are not left wondering what is next for you, and where you can go from there.